What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones, and AJ, we're here for another edition of the UNC Basketball Show. I guess it's our first postseason edition of the UNC Basketball Show. I guess we can officially say that now that the regular season's come to a close. ACC Tournament did start today. We're recording this on Tuesday evening, so ACC Tournament is well underway, and Carolina obviously getting started on Thursday against the winner of Florida State and Virginia Tech. So remains to be soon seen who the Tar Heels will be playing, but I'm sure everybody's excited for postseason basketball to get rolling, AJ. So this is going to be a little bit of a fun show. This is going to be a pretty casual show. We're going to talk about some of those ACC accolades and awards that have a handful of Carolina players and obviously a Carolina coach as well received on Monday afternoon, and then we'll talk a little bit about the ACC tournament and whatever else comes to mind. So this will be more of a little bit of a laid back kind of fun show instead of one where we have a huge rundown of topics to talk about. So I'm looking forward to talking this one because it is a lot of fun things to talk about. And AJ, like I just said, we'll start with the ACC accolades and awards that Carolina received, and I won't read them all off. We can just kind of go through these individually. Let's start with Hubert Davis, Coach of the Year in the ACC. For me, no brainer. Only vote for me. I know Jeff Capel was not right behind him because Hubert Davis ran away with it, receiving 49 votes. Jeff Capel right there behind him with 12. So a big gap when you see the difference between 1 and 2 there. But again, you look at the job Hubert's done this year, from the off-season roster rebuild to how things started this year and winning an outright ACC title. I mean, it's been a fantastic year for Hubert Davis after what was a very difficult season last year. Let's make no mistakes about it. So what are your thoughts on Hubert Davis winning the ACC Coach of the Year award?
Well, I distinctly remember a couple of guys from Tar Heel Illustrated doing a podcast last year about this time saying, look, you got to wait for year 3.
Yeah.
You can't make a judgment in 3 years is fair, because like in anything that you do, you have to adjust. And since he's not playing games every, 5 days a week for 52 weeks out of the year, like we do in our regular, or like most people do in their regular jobs, we don't in ours. We're 363 out of 365 days. It takes a while. It takes 3 years. He's got to go through cycles. He's got to get more of his roster in place and learn from his mistakes. He's clearly coached a little bit differently this year than a year ago. So I think year 3 has been a hell of a year for Hubert, and he absolutely deserved Coach of the Year. I think he should get some National Coach of the Year. Yeah. Be part of that discussion as well. I think Capel finishing second makes sense. They were 1-5 in the league. They get a double bye. He's done a really nice job up there. He's kind of settled in, and he's got a program going up there now. He kind of knows what's working. So good for him. They almost ran him out a couple of years ago. And a lot of Carolina fans were ready to run Hubert out a year ago. And I don't hear from them too often now. Occasionally, when they lose at home to Clemson, well, how can they lose that game after beating Duke? Because people are very reactionary and very emotional. 25-6, 17-3. The man has done a great job. There are a couple things, of course, to critique, but that's with everybody.
Of course.
That's with everybody. Pete Rose is the all-time hits leader in baseball. He also made the most outs in baseball.
Yeah.
So that happens. That's part of life. And I love what Hubert's done with this team. I think he's the right guy to have an older team, this kind of older team, because I believe that there's a connection. He not only brought in basketball players that fit, but he brought in people that fit. Cormac fits, Harrison fits, Jalen Withers fits, and James Okonkwo, who hasn't played a whole lot, he fits for sure, and Paxson Mojic also fits. When I see these guys in warm-ups, and I go down to the floor every game, I'm out there. And I'm out there when a lot of them come out, just to get a feel, just shoot pictures and some clips and send them out there on Twitter so people know, hey, we're here, game's coming up, ready to roll. I see a club that really likes each other. I see guys having fun. I see RJ messing around with James Okonkwo, sort of doing some mock one-on-one stuff, an hour and a half before a game starts. That's cool, because think of the paths they took to converge at this meeting point with their teammates.
Yeah, it's great.
Think about Cormac Ryan and Harrison Ingram being starters, 2 former Stanford guys starting and playing massive roles against, for Carolina. One of them had 21 against Duke the first time. The other one went for 31 against Duke the second time, and they came from Stanford. And they ended up in Chapel Hill, which is pretty wild stuff. So I like the makeup of this team for a million reasons, and Hubert deserves credit for putting this group together. So much of college basketball and college football now is about roster management. Mac Brown talks about it constantly. And it's the kind of thing that might drive some head coaches out of both sports because it's too much. It's crazier than free agency in either sport in the offseason.
Yeah.
Just trying to manage your roster while finding players in a fairly limited window of time to make things happen. Hubert did a great job. I think Hubert now kind of knows what he wants to go after in terms of the kinds of kids, not just the kinds of players, but the kinds of kids that could come in and very quickly assimilate. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying some of the other ones didn't assimilate, but this group did. And he had two older guys in RJ and Armando who were hell-bent on just winning.
Yeah.
They wanted to win. They told Hubert, look, get guys in here that can help us win. Armando, who still gets too much crap, and I'm arguing with some people about his relevance historically at Carolina, the jersey and the rafters talk, people saying he takes plays off, which is just moronic. So he gets beaten sometimes. He's not taking a play off. He just gets beaten. Yeah, but that guy wants to win. The two of them said, we want to win. Armando has stepped back from some of his production on the glass and was scoring in order for this team to be better and more complete and to win more, and they have. And that's Hubert. It's not just 22 and 23-year-olds doing it on their own. The success or failure of any organization begins at the top. And Hubert has created a culture in which everybody in that room fits in, as part of that culture. They all belong under that tent, and it's his tent. And from a basketball standpoint, they don't run nearly as many set plays as they used to. They run a lot more actions. That's one of the changes that they made. He is coaching to his personnel a lot more now than he did last year. Last year, there were times he was trying to fit a square peg into a round hole with Pete. And he kept forcing it and kept forcing it and kept forcing it. It didn't quite work. So he learned. Now, they don't have Pete now, so he's not presented with that challenge. But even if he did, he would have found ways to maximize the talents better. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. He's a much better coach than he was a year ago. 25-6, 17-3, number 4 in the country, in contention for a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Tells you all you need to know of the job that Hubert did this year. Has done this year. It's still going on.
Yeah, still potentially plenty of basketball left. And let me just say this, because I got something that really grinds my gears, AJ. I'm gonna go ahead and I got to go ahead and air this out. I've praised Hubert at times this year on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and I always get a few people who respond, "Oh, now you like him. You're criticizing him all last year."
Oh yeah.
And I've
we got that the other day on Twitter.
Said, AJ, I've responded to. I usually don't respond, but a couple of times I've said, "Are we just gonna act like last year didn't happen, guys? Like, why is it that when someone deserves criticism, because I think Hubert deserves criticism for what happened last year. It's not rocket science. They underachieved massively last year when you look at the roster and what happened the year before. But it's like now, well, they're really good and he's ACC Coach of the Year. So that criticism you labeled at him a year ago, like you were wrong. And it's like, guys, like last year still happened. I mean, it's not like that was never a thing. So I had to go ahead and air that out because that kind of stuff just drives me
but
crazy.
some of those people that have kind of gone at us said that we were calling for his head last year, which
is not true. I
said throughout the entire season. I mean, go back and listen to all our pods. I bet you every one of them I said you need 3 years.
Yeah. I remember you saying that a lot. I remember that
100 times over. You need 3 years. 2 years isn't fair, especially 2 years when once they rolled that group out there, you had two guys in a backcourt that simply couldn't coexist anymore. You had a 4, a 5 trying to play a 4. You didn't have much of a bench. He couldn't play the bench. And I don't care what those guys are doing elsewhere. Some of them are on really, really bad teams. So someone has to play and someone has to produce, right? A couple others haven't been that great on another semi-bad team too. So another one's on a team that's not sniffing the NCAA tournament. You get my drift? Wasn't a great group. That's not to be harsh on those kids. It just wasn't. And those are some mistakes maybe that Hubert made in recruiting and made in evaluating what he had, and realized he had to roll with that group. Other than Trimble, he had to roll with that another Iron Five, so to speak. So he's learned. I do think there are things to poke at a little bit this year. I don't think he uses the bench enough. I think sometimes he gets tight and he sticks with the starters a little bit too much. I actually think sometimes somebody getting a second foul kind of early is good for the game, because that means their bench is going to play some. And eventually, and as long as they don't foul out or get to a fourth foul early in the game or early in the second half, they're going to be okay in the end. I also think lately pulling back, like pulling the air out a little bit at the 5-minute mark, is just way too early. And he's done that too much here lately. And that's something that needs to change. They need to be more aggressive, deeper into the game. There is a time when to pull back. But I think they do it too soon. But you know what? They're 26-5, 17-3. They've won 6 in a row. What the hell do I know, right?
Yeah, right. 100%. Yeah, and again, just because there's always
done a great
things
job
you can work on. Yeah, there's always things you can work on. Like you said, it's like any part. You can be really good at your job, but there's always stuff you can get better at. I mean, it's his 3rd year as a head coach as well. I mean, come on, guys. Again, I just think in the world of social media, AJ, you can't criticize and praise at the same time. You have to either criticize and stick to it, and then when something happens like this, you just got to keep saying he sucks, or you praise and you praise and you praise.
Here's the thing. Even what I just said, that I'm not really criticizing. I'm just observing.
Yeah, just
observations.
Yeah. Exactly.
More than praise. Sometimes praise is too far this way and criticism is too far that way. I'm in the middle there. They're just observations. I've been doing this crap for 27 plus years, 28. This is my 28th season. I played basketball growing up, used to go to camps. I know the game a little bit. I kind of understand what I'm looking at a little bit. And I also understand the temperament of teams and how they evolve and all that kind of stuff. And for me, it's just about observations. I'm not always right. I'm not always wrong. But the observations are, if a team's not doing this well for a stretch and suddenly they start doing that well, that doesn't mean you were wrong when they weren't doing it well. Hubert said they weren't rebounding like they should have or defending through the Kentucky game. That doesn't make them wrong now, because they weren't. But guess what? They've out-rebounded their last 20 opponents. Guess what? They're the top defensive team in the ACC. So they fixed it. And he deserves credit for that, because those are 2 flags in the soil that he planted in December: defense and rebounding, which are 2 of the 3 most important things you can do in basketball. 100%. And they fixed it, and they're damn good at both. This team has, in the 20-game stretch, that they've out-rebounded the opponents, 13 times they've grabbed 8 or more rebounds than their opponents. They're 13-0 in those games.
Pretty good right there, man.
I could go on and on and on. And these are things that are directly linked to the head coach. So he gets my vote. He has my vote for ACC Player of the Year. And I would give him serious consideration for National Player of the Year if I had a vote for something like that.
Yeah, no doubt. No, he's been fantastic and definitely deserves those Coach of the Year honors. Let's move it on a little bit. Let's start with RJ Davis. Moving on to the player side of this, obviously ACC Player of the Year. For me, no brainer when it comes to voting for that. He was the number 1 pick for me weeks ago, really, but it was obviously solidified on Monday. And also earlier on Tuesday came out First Team Sporting News All-American as well. He'll get more of those All-American honors and should be a First Team All-American on every voting platform who does something like that. So RJ Davis, spectacular year, received 10 for obviously the number 1 guy in terms of on the first team All-ACC as well, 10 votes behind in front of, PJ Hall from Clemson. So massive year for him, fully deserved it. And AJ, I don't know if I'm sure you've seen it by now, but Caleb Love winning Pac-12 Player of the Year. It's guess further solidifies that, like we said months and months and months ago when that happened, that separation and Caleb Love going somewhere else was always the best decision for both parties. So just been an interesting year for Carolina's backcourt 12 months ago. You know what I mean? It's wild to see that.
Well, I think that's proof that they couldn't coexist together, and they're better by subtraction. By the way, who voted for Quentin Post? You got to lose your credentials. And that's where people less is more sometimes. I think there's too many people that have access to some of this stuff that just don't have their eyes open. And honestly, I think PJ Hall is fantastic, but they're 11-9. They're playing on Wednesday.
I know.
for all the love that I've given Brad Brownell over the years, they are propped up right now because of what they did in December.
Exactly.
Not for what they did in January, February. They're 11-9 in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So, and one of their losses, Carolina owned PJ Hall. So I don't understand how anybody could have voted for anybody other than RJ.
Yeah.
Filipowski had a really good year, but let's face it, when Duke took another step up is when Jared McCain became consistent and very, very good. And he should have won Rookie of the Year. Last week I was saying Marcus Burton, but Brendan Marks of The Athletic, who does a great job, he convinced me that it should be Jared McCain. It should have been him. Mm-hmm. Elliott was on the all-freshman team too, which he deserved. Yeah, but the RJ should have been a landslide.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Nobody else.
I think that should have been a landslide more than Hubert. So I can understand someone voting for Capel. I can understand that because they were 1-5. I don't agree with it, but I can understand it. There is nobody else that should have gotten a vote other than RJ. Nobody. Mm-hmm. When you look at the attention, Duke did a great job against RJ. Duke's mission in both games was don't let Davis go off. He didn't go off. And Duke's 0-2 in those games. It didn't. I mean, RJ makes other guys better. That he takes so much command of an opponent's defense. They have to game plan out of character to try to slow him down. That it makes everybody else better.
Yeah.
So he's either going nuts, or he's taking so much of your attention that you're not great otherwise defensively. And Baycott and Ingram went for 46 in the first game. Ryan goes for 31 in the second game. Mm-hmm. That's a result of RJ's presence on the court.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Absolutely.
Of course. He's fantastic. And I will say, when you look at the votes, he did receive 68 votes. Filipowski right there behind him with 3. So it was a pretty big margin, but I do agree with you. I don't even know how anybody else gets a vote there, really. Yeah,
it should have been unanimous.
Yeah, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say the guy who voted for Quentin Post probably covers Boston College.
Well, I would think so, but one of the things though that's kind of bothered me about that thinking is just because you cover a team doesn't mean you're pro that guy. Well, what it means is you've seen that guy. It means you've seen that guy more than everybody else.
Yeah. You know how it is, though.
And they try to spread the votes around. There's a lot more full-time media that covers a North Carolina or a Duke or an NC State. Louisville has a lot. There are a couple other programs that have a lot. Than for, say, BC. I can tell you this much. When Carolina played at BC back in January, there were more writers covering North Carolina in the press room than there were writers covering Boston College. There were like five photographers, maybe 3 or 4 writers, and there were 4 writers that cover North Carolina.
That's hard to believe. I am a little surprised by that. I probably shouldn't be.
But that's not uncommon, and it's not that far off at Miami. It's not that far off at FSU for basketball. Football, there's 1,000 people there. Basketball, not so. Georgia Tech, there's not a lot that cover Georgia Tech. You have the AJC. You don't have the other papers in the state really covering them. So it's a different world, and they spread the voting around. So you're getting some of these guys that have a vote that probably spend 12 hours a week on sports. So it's amazing how everything's changed. Back in the day when I first broke in, you didn't find any part-time sports media because they were all full-time guys. They're all newspaper guys. The list of newspapers were on who was covering a game. When you look at your seating chart for media, tons of papers. I was with the Wilmington paper, and I moved from Wilmington to the Triangle so I could be around the ACC every day.
Does not happen anymore, does it?
Wilmington hasn't sent a guy to an ACC game probably since Friedlander left about 7 years ago.
Wow. It's crazy how much
it's totally changed. So you have a different kind of media for the most part now than you used to. I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody, but there are people that are credentialed that probably shouldn't be credentialed.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's even shifted in the 5 years I've been here. Really, when I first, there are more people in the media room now that 5-6 years ago wouldn't have been credentialed in. And I think it's just the way media is shifting, obviously. But I think you can see it in instances like this where you have guys that are randomly getting votes. And it's like, well, you must just be a fan of Boston College or something. And you voted for him because that's the only team you watch and you like him a lot. I mean, come on, guys. It was RJ Davis, and it was.
Or you don't take the votes, or you don't take the votes seriously. Anybody that doesn't take the votes seriously should lose the vote.
Yeah,
because it's just. I think it's a serious thing.
Filipowski with 3 doesn't even make sense to me. I mean, he's had a good year, but he's not. It's RJ Davis, and it's just nobody else. You know what I mean? So it's just a very interesting. Heck, AJ, even Armando Bacot received a vote. What world is Armando Bacot?
Look, I've been Armando's biggest defender this year. Not that he needs me to be. I have, just because I've talked to people that know the game, and they've echoed some of these things, NBA scouts and so on, about Armando, and I see his game on a different level than it was a year ago. He's not scoring as much, he's not grabbing as many rebounds, but he's doing everything else 1,000 times better than he was before. By the way, all defensive team, kudos to him. So
pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not going to get onto a whole Armando thing here. We've done that before, but Quentin Post, you're not taking it seriously if you vote. And Quentin's a really nice player.
Yeah, he's a good player.
Really is.
He ain't no player of the year.
You're not taking it seriously if you vote for him. Caleb winning Pac-12 Player of the Year is cool. Good for him. Mm-hmm. Caleb's had a really good year. The thing I've been impressed whenever I watch them or I look at their box scores, I look at all their box scores, is how many games he's had like 5 or 6 assists. Mm-hmm. And he's always been a good passer. Remember, Hubert used to say, I think Caleb can lead the ACC in assists. The problem is Caleb wants to lead the league in scoring too. Yeah. And he approaches every game like that, and that's not conducive to leading the league in assists. It was never going to happen. You were never going to put the lid on Caleb. The lid came off the minute he stepped on campus, wherever he is, and the lid was going to stay off. He has to shoot to be who he is. And some of those games this year, he's had like 7 for 27 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I do think that he has given them a degree of hoops gravitas that they needed on that team. And they got a guy that hit one of the biggest shots in Carolina history on their roster. And they have that moving into the postseason. Now that the postseason's here, having him can be an awfully big thing for Arizona moving forward. So kudos to Caleb. I liked him. I liked him when I covered him. I thought he was always pretty straightforward. Nice guy. Gets a bad rap from Carolina fans. If Carolina plays them, I hope he doesn't get booze from Carolina fans, because you can't take away that shot, man. It happened. And a lot of people watching or listening to this right now have a poster or a 8x11 or something of that shot. It's wallpaper on their laptop. It's something on their phone. It's there. And it ain't going away, because he can't take it away. He delivered that. And to his credit, and this isn't a Caleb Love podcast, but to his credit, when he's had the opportunity lately to be asked about hitting scoring 2,000 points and to reflect on his career, he has said very, very positive things about North Carolina. Very positive things. Yeah. And the people at North Carolina are aware of this, and they're appreciative. And I don't know, at least in some realms of the program, I don't see any or hear any ill will, and I don't know of any ill will even with the players.
Doesn't seem like it. No, really. And I agree. For everything I've heard and everything you see, even on social media, I mean, players, were posted stuff about Caleb and posted stuff on their Instagram stories about Caleb. I definitely don't think there's any love lost between anybody there and the fans. It's funny. I think even with the Caleb situation, it was like, even in the off season, I remember people tweeting me like, "Oh, you think there's a chance?" So before he committed to Arizona, I think it was Who did he commit to before Arizona? Michigan.
But it was something about that.
Michigan. People were saying, "Is there any chance he comes back to Carolina?" And I'm like, "Man, this narrative has shifted in 3 months. It's crazy."
Yeah, and the Michigan thing wasn't because he wasn't a good student. It was because Michigan is like Carolina. It's one of the top public universities in the country, and to transfer in as a senior, you had to have certain courses lined up, and he didn't have those courses lined up. He could have returned to Carolina, but Michigan couldn't take him. Arizona could, but Arizona's not University of Michigan. Michigan, Virginia, Cal Berkeley, and Carolina are the 4 top public state universities in the country. Very, very good schools.
Might have dodged a bullet not going to Michigan too. Looking how.
Oh God, can you imagine him there?
No.
He'd be taking 40 shots a night there.
Yeah, I'm sure he's glad. I think Arizona was the right landing place for him. And again, with him winning that, Pac-12 Player of the Year, I think he further solidified that. But let's talk about the last three players. You mentioned Armando Bacot, second team All-ACC, also all defensive team. You've been praising his defense all year, so it's almost like you know what you're talking about. Harrison Ingram, third team All-ACC. Elliot Cadeau, all rookie team. So those are the four players: RJ Davis, Armando Bacot, Harrison Ingram, and Elliot Cadeau, all receiving some sort of ACC honors and accolades. So thoughts? I know you talked about Armando, but again, think he definitely deserved it. Second team seems right for me. I think there were shouts. You could make a shout of him potentially being on the first team as well. But when I look at who's on that first team, I think second team probably makes sense. And then Ingram on the third team. He had to squeeze in there somewhere. And I think third team probably fits him well as well. And then Elliot Cadeau, all rookie team, like I said, I think he deserves that too. So thoughts on those three guys getting those all ACC accolades?
Well, I think if you look at the first, second, third team All-ACC this year as opposed to the last couple of years, I think it's better. I think this group would make a better team, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I think there's a higher end of player than leagues. I also think the teams are better. I think the ACC is better than it was a year ago. I don't think there's any question about that. Armando is being second team. I think you could have made a case for first team, but I understand voters are going to look at box scores first because guess what? I'm not watching every game that these other guys play, so I don't see all the intangibles. And I would never expect somebody else to see them. So the first thing you look at are rebounds, points, and blocks, assists, steals, that kind of thing. When I get the thing every week from the ACC to vote for Player of the Week and Rookie of the Week, that's what they send us. So I take into consideration, did they win? I take into consideration who they play. But I'm not going to go back and watch, Carlton. I'm not going to watch Carrington's games for Pittsburgh to see if I need to vote for him for Rookie of the Week. I mean, I do watch a lot of the ACC games. I tape almost all of them. I try to watch them all, but I don't watch them all. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I do. Nobody has that much time. If you're doing this for a living, you can't. The crazy thing is you do this for a living, and in a weird kind of way, you see less than a lot of other people do. Mm-hmm. In terms of just the games, but you do get to see a ton of stuff up close, which is different as well. So I think second team is fine. He's a two-time first team All-ACC. He's a second team All-ACC guy. He was honorable mention, I believe, his sophomore year.
I think so.
And he's been on some All-America teams. It's like third team. And you have to be first or second to get your jersey up there. The jersey doesn't qualify just yet, but it will because there will be an amendment made, and there should be. And for all the people who are complaining about that, go back to the podcast that Theo Pinson had here last week when they were talking about Carolina's great point guards. So many people threw Ed Coda's name out there, and guess whose jersey is not in the rafters? Ed Coda. Mm-hmm. But when an amendment is made that if you are the all-time leader in one of the higher-end statistical categories, all-time leader at this fabled program, your jersey gets up there. And he's the all-time leader in assists. And when they make this amendment, Ed Coda's jersey will justly go up as well. So Armando's will go up. Two-time first-team All-ACC, I think, is an amendment that should replace Olympic, the Olympic gold medal, because the Olympic gold medal doesn't mean anything anymore. It's not connected to the program relevant anymore, because it was relevant at a time when only college players played in the Olympic team. Mm-hmm. That's when it was relevant. And everything has changed. Dean came up with that criteria back in the, early mid-'70s. It's a different world now, man. And the ACC had 7 teams at the time. Now it's going to have 18 next year. If you're a two-time first-team All-ACC guy in this current era, I think that absolutely trumps 3 weeks in Montreal in the Olympics. Mm-hmm. So they will make an amendment. He will get his jersey up there. And for his sake, for all the complainers, maybe he gets MOP at the Final Four and it shuts everybody up.
That's true. That'd be best case scenario for Armando and UNC fans too, because that means they won a national championship.
I do kind of enjoy defending him, and defending him with the criteria that I'm talking about, because those things should have been. People say watering it down. They didn't always have MOP. If you're the MOP of a Final Four, you get your jersey up there. So they added MOP a little more than a decade ago, and they also added MVP of the national championship team, which got George Lynch up there. Mm-hmm. So they've done it before. And I think that it's okay to do this as well. After that, I don't think you really want to make any other amendments. These would be the two that make the most sense and should have probably always been. The statistical thing never would have been a part of Dean because Dean hated statistics. He didn't. Hubert always mentions, well, he didn't. He took the statistics out of the Daily Tar Heel.
That's old school, right there.
Yeah, it is.
So old school. I don't believe it. It's the stats are just everywhere nowadays. And again, I think some people could go overboard with them, but no, they do serve a purpose and do tell stories. So it's so old school that he did not like them. Ingram, third team, Elliot Cadeau, all rookie team. I mean, again, I think those are deserved as well. I think Ingram deserved to be on that list somewhere because he's been really good. We call him Mr. Intangibles over here at TarHeelIllustrated.com, but man, he has been really, really good in some games, but it always seems like he just gives you something every night, AJ. I mean, he really does. And a ton of double-doubles this season as well. So with Cadeau and Ingram making all ACC teams, I think they're, well-deserved too. So credit to them for doing that.
Oh, Harrison needs to be on there somewhere. His flare-up game, first of all, he leads the ACC in rebounding in ACC play at 11.5 a game.
Pretty good.
He's had massive, massive rebounding games. I think the edge that he brings onto the court, we always knew Cormac had an edge, but we didn't really know what Harrison's edge was because a lot of people didn't really see him play much at Stanford. And he's got an unbelievable edge. I think the both of them together are both screw you guys. But Harrison I think it's more infectious from him because he does a lot more stuff on the court than Cormac. He dips his hands in all the statistical baskets. You're going to see his box score is going to have more crooked numbers than Cormac's. That's not to say anything negative about Cormac. It's just what Harrison is. He also has had some huge flare-up games, some huge rebound flare-up games. I mean, he had 19 at State, and they needed every one of them. He had 17 at Pitt. When they were winning kind of ugly, those first 3 road games at the start of the new year, that kind of set them in place. I remember doing a pod with you, doing a 3 Things with you, or a regular podcast around that time when they went and gritted one out at Pitt, they gritted one out at Clemson, they gritted one out at State. And I'm like, that stuff's going to stay with them. They've now proven that this is kind of who they are. This is in their DNA. So it's going to travel with them. Whether they let it all out every time remains to be seen. And they have pretty much let it all out most every night. And the guy who's doing it right out of the gate is Harrison. If there's ever an incident on the floor that could become more of an incident, who's the first guy there?
Sure.
Harrison. I've said before, Harrison's a guy that will help an old lady across the street. And then if somebody, as soon as they hit the curb, if someone messes with one of his dudes, he's in their face.
Yeah.
He's just that guy.
That's a great analogy.
And you love having guys like that on your team. You win championships with guys that get under the skin of opponents because they never let up. They are constantly on the go. And he and Cormac are constantly on the go. It's visible. It's sweaty. It's annoying if you're an opponent. And then he combines all those skills to go with it. I just think that he's a fabulous basketball player. Third team All-ACC makes sense because not everybody can be first team. Not everybody can be second team. I think third team is a good spot for him. And if North Carolina wins the national championship this year, Harrison Ingram is going to be a massive part of it. And there's going to be a couple of games along the way where people just look at his box score and say, wow. Yeah. He's not going to do it every game because it's not always called on every game. That's the great thing about this team. But people are going to look at that. You're going to have a 16-point, 15 rebound, 4 assist game, 3 steals kind of thing. That's going to, if they win 6 in a row, if they win 3 this weekend and win 6 in a row in the next tournament, Harrison's going to have some games like that.
Of course. No, he's fun to watch too. He's a throwback kind of player in my opinion, but man, he does it all for North Carolina. Super, super important to Carolina's success this year. And I know he gets a lot of love from Carolina fans too. So I know I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know, but he's been fantastic. Third team. I agree. I think that's right where he should be. AJ, we're going to head out of here in a second. and you got to travel up to DC here shortly anyway. But let's talk about the ACC tournament. Obviously, up in the Capital One Center in Washington, DC, did tip off on Tuesday. Carolina doesn't play till Thursday at noon against the winner of Florida State and Virginia Tech. I know you're probably looking forward to getting back up to your old stomping grounds, covering the ACC tournament. I know it's a fun event to cover besides the lack of Wi-Fi wherever the ACC tournament tends to be held. But what are your thoughts on getting back out? You looking forward to the tournament this week, AJ?
I always love it when it's up there. It's a little bit more personal for me for obvious reasons. I love going back up there. It's home, or it was home, and it helped shape me, which, again, I've said before, may not be a selling point for that area, but I'm looking forward to getting up there. I'm not as excited about the ACC tournament now as I used to be. It used to be my favorite event to cover. My favorite thing now to cover, of all the stuff I cover, my favorite thing is Final Four Friday. Of course, I don't get the Final Four Friday unless North Carolina's there nowadays. I used to go at times when other teams in the region would go, or I could. But Final Four Friday is awesome. We'll talk about that some other time if that becomes a reality later this year. As far as the ACC tournament goes, I've always looked at it as a celebration of the league, a celebration of a neighborhood. It's sort of like a block party when everybody gets out there and you talk about whatever you talk about, and the neighbors. You knew them when Johnny and Susie were in a carriage, in a stroller, and then you remember the night that they had their graduation party, that kind of thing. That's what the ACC was to me for a long time. It's not so much that anymore. I thought even once they brought in the new schools, the Big East schools, the tournament still had a lot of vitality. It had a lot of importance. The last time I was in DC, 2016, it was still very, very important, but it's lost a lot of it in the last few years. College sports has changed so much, and we have gotten rid of so many traditions and are going to get rid of more traditions. That something like this, as beautiful as it's been, and as awesome as the documentary series on the ACC tournament, the 10-part series, which I was in, and I loved it. It's one of the great honors I've had in my career was to be on that series. It's sometimes things come and their time is ready to go. And I say that because of the way the league's changed, not so much because there are tickets available in every session up in DC. That speaks to the lack of interest. The NCAA tournament is so big now, and the beginning of it is so big. And if the tournament expands, maybe you use that weekend to launch the tournament with all these playing games, which is what I think is going to end up happening. I think they're going to go to 80 and have a bunch of the at-large potential, all the teams battling for the at-larges. All the teams that Lenardi focuses on, all of them are going to be in a little mini play-in type tournament as part of the NCAA tournament, and then you have your launch. That's what I think is probably going to happen. So you got to find a place to do that. You got to find a spot to do that. And I think it'll be conference tournament weekend. I think the major conferences are all going to go away from them sooner rather than later. I think the ACC might be the first one to do it. And it wouldn't be a bad idea because of this. First of all, 20 games is too many. Then you have a conference tournament. So we're seeing with the NCAA tournament how many ACC teams are getting in. We're seeing a clear result of the league play, the teams having to play 2 extra conference games, which means a lot more losses for everybody. We're seeing an effect of that, how many teams the league gets in. The last year before they were supposed to go to 20, I guess, 2019, 3 ACC teams were number 1 seeds. Okay. Then when Roy kept saying, you guys go to 20, it's going to hurt the league. And he was 100% right. Now, not as many teams are going because you're building in losses. SEC is an 18-game schedule. That means everybody in that league gets 2 non-conference games ACC teams don't get. And with the way the stupid net is, if you play McNeese State twice and beat the crap out of them, you go up in the net.
Yeah.
So there are ways to manipulate the system some. I think what the ACC should do, I do think the tournament will go away sooner rather than later. When I say that, by the end of this decade, probably it'll be gone. I think that's one reason why it's in this state for a while. A, ticket sales. B, easier to pull out of those agreements than if you lock down a Capital One arena or if you lock down Phillips Arena in Atlanta or something like that in case the tournament does go away. I think you should go back to a 19-game schedule, cut 1 game off. That way, with the expanded ACC, you still get to play everybody once and then two teams twice. So Carolina and State, Carolina Duke will still play twice. Everyone will have two permanent partners. Virginia Tech still play twice. Florida State, Miami still play twice, etc. Then you have no conference tournament. Use that as a regular season games. Everybody built in to play a game in the tournament. So you could play 19 conference games, have two more non-conference games added, and that's that. And you end the season this past week, and everyone's got their resumes, and they'll be selected accordingly. Instead of playing a 20-game schedule where you're built in extra losses, and now in the conference tournament, you're adding – there's 15 teams in the league right now. 14 are losing a game this week. Most of them are on the bubble. All of them are on the bubble. Unless Syracuse or Wake or Pitt win the thing, they're all on the bubble. They can't afford any more losses. What losses hurt them more than wins help them right now. So you eliminate that as well. So, and I'm not alone in saying, I know people are going to say, dude, you can't get rid of the ACC tournament. It's history. I get that. I love the ACC tournament.
Yeah. No, I understand that.
It was my favorite event for years. My first ACC tournament I covered was 1997. The first game I covered was NC State upsetting Duke. That was Herb's first year in that run they made to the title game. And David Thompson sat next to me on press row, and I was like, I drooled coming out. You know, I'm an ACC guy. I grew up loving the ACC. I used to go to Maryland games. You know, I'm a Len Bias guy. And that was cool. And I was all about the ACC tournament. It was fired up. I used to buy the shirts. I buy them for people. I might buy one this weekend because it's in DC. That's
a little more personal.
So I think, look, times are changing. People still love their teams, even with all the changes. Texas and Texas A&M stopped playing football, and it didn't affect attendance. It didn't affect the love for the teams. Didn't affect the desire to win. Stuff changes. Some things should always be there. Carolina Duke should always play in football. Carolina State should always play, or in basketball. Carolina State should always play in football. But I think the major conference tournaments time has come and gone.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've always said too that, you know, it's a pretty obvious statement, but a better judgment of a team is the, you know, what it is now is 20 game, but the 20 game marathon of a regular season. That's the bread and butter, AJ. That's where you separate yourself from other people, not going up to DC and winning a few games in a row and, you know, winning a tournament and then you're in the big dance. To me, no, if you don't take care of it in the regular season, you shouldn't play in the postseason. Again, that's how I look at it. So I completely agree with that. You know what I mean? Duke passed Carolina by recently in most ACC tournament championships. I'm not going to say Roy didn't put an emphasis on it. He won 3, but you know, he wanted to win every game. I'm never going to say he didn't try to win. However, the fan base, there are people on our boards when I ask the question, what do you think Carolina needs to do this weekend to get a number 1 seed? A lot of them are like, well, I don't want them to play 3 games. Yeah, I had people I talked to on the phone in the last couple of days. I don't want them to play 3 games. I want them to rest their legs for the tournament. I hear it too.
The tournament. Yeah. So if it matters that much, how would any fan who once used to cry when they won the ACC championship now say, nah, win a game, get out of there, get home, rest your legs?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you're playing an event where the fans of programs like a North Carolina and a Kansas, you know, the Church of College Basketball type programs where it is religion, are looking at games like, I don't want to play the whole thing. I don't want to win that championship. It'd be great to win that championship, but I don't want to play 3 games. That means it doesn't carry that much importance anymore.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I understand where you're coming from. And to be honest, I take your side on it. I don't see a point in it. I mean, I get why they do it. I love the history of it. I think it's awesome. Again, I grew up watching the ACC tournament. It's been a big part of my life, but I wouldn't be, you know, losing any sleep if they got rid of it. Let's put it that way. And I think that overall, in terms of the regular season and the postseason with an expanded NCAA tournament makes a ton of sense. So, AJ, let's go ahead and get out of here, man. We're about 50 minutes on this show. You got to go up and hit the road and get up to DC. I know Carolina's got press conferences on Wednesday as well that you'll be there for. So make sure you guys keep it locked at Tar Heel Illustrated.
Hold on. Who do you think's going to win? Who do you think's going to win this weekend?
Carolina.
If somebody other than Carolina wins,
you know who I think wins it? Duke.
And I'm thinking that Carolina and Duke don't win it. And I think the league is going to get. I think the league gets fortunate that somebody that needs to win some games wins it and gets in. I'm going to go Syracuse.
I think that's a good pick. I don't hate that pick. I'm
Pitt.
I was going to say.
In our staff picks, I have Pitt knocking off Carolina on Friday night.
Yes,
I shouldn't get
I have that as well.
It's a premium thing.
I have that as well.
Lots of our other staff is on there too. You'll see what they're picking. But
yeah, I have that as well. I'm between Pitt and Duke. The only reason I picked Duke is because it just feels like Duke always makes a run in the ACC tournament. It feels like it's like you said, most ACC tournament wins for them. It feels like it's kind of their thing. So anytime someone's like, who do you think is going to win the tournament? I usually go towards Duke. And especially when you look at, losing to Carolina twice, not having a chance to win that ACC get a share of that regular season title, not doing it at home on senior night. Maybe there's a little bit of a motivation. Maybe they're more locked in and motivated to go win the ACC tournament than some other teams are in the league. So I'm split between Pittsburgh and Duke. I'd prefer if Pitt won it though, because I like what I've seen from Pitt this year. I like the growth they've shown.
Yeah, the tournament too.
I like it, man. Yeah, and again, I think
I will say this. And let me say this. I think Carolina's going there with the full intent of winning the thing.
Oh, I do too.
Whatever people want to believe, and they want to try to attach to the Roy didn't care about the ACC tournament because it was a cocktail party stuff, that's fine. You can do that. But this group, the way this coach and the way these players have approached each game, I know they haven't always been popping out of the gate.
Yeah,
the hangover stuff after the first Duke game occurred and they learned from it. But I think this team is so locked in that they're going to try to win. I just think that they're going to be playing really, really desperate teams, and tournaments are just different. Everything about it's different. Your shoot around is different. Your warm-ups are different. Your layup line is different. Everything is different. And I think with the level of desperation of who they're going to play, either Wake or Pitt, they're going to play a team that has to beat them. Has to beat them. So either that other club's going to be tight and they play crap, or they play out of their minds and get a win against a team that of the three banners that they said that they wanted to hang, the biggest one they wanted is still out there. The second most important one they just got. The third most important one is this weekend.
Yeah, that's the order. That's 100% the order. No, Hubert's not going to be in the locker room before the game on, at 11:45 a.m. on Thursday and be like, all right, guys, let's go out there and play about 50%. Let's get the heck out of town, go back home and rest of this. It's just not how Hubert works. That's not how.
And I just think the wiring of this group is they're not going to do that. But they've won 6 in a row. They're going to, if they lose a game, the world isn't ending. It's just a game.
No. So much to play for.
It's a tournament game, obviously, but it's just a game. You want the next one. And I'm just thinking, I just have a feeling that that's where the champion's going to come from this weekend. And I guess I've been saying it for about a week and a half now in press rooms, so I have to stick with it. And I've been throwing Syracuse out there, which is why Syracuse will lose the first game, because I said they're going to win the tournament.
You get annihilated, yeah.
And Wake will beat Pitt, so Carolina won't face Pitt either. So because I said it was going to happen, it's not going to happen.
You can write that down 100%. No, but it'll be interesting to see. I'm looking forward to watching the tournament. Looking forward to seeing how this week shakes out, because like we've talked about a few times, I think there is a few teams in the league that could win it. I don't think it's not cut and dry, and that's why I'm like Duke or Pitt or maybe somebody else. Like I said,
who's the lowest seed that can win it? Who's the lowest seed that can win it? Clemson at 6.
I'm not. I am probably the most anti-Clemson person ever, because they do the same thing every year. They start out non-conference really well, and they just capitulate in ACC play. Yeah. So no, I don't think. I think Clemson could on paper, and if they're playing at the high end, but I just have zero trust in Brad Brownell and Clemson to do it. So I can't pick Clemson. I mean, Syracuse is obviously in there.
5. Yeah, Syracuse is what, the 7?
I think so. I need to.
Yeah, they're the 7. They're the 7 because the 8-9 is Virginia Tech, Florida State. No, I don't think Virginia Tech or Florida State can. I don't think.
I think it's probably Syracuse. I don't think anybody below them has
Syracuse
a chance.
at 7. Yeah.
I don't think anybody below them has a chance.
Do you think Wake can win it?
No. Not playing at home. Not playing.
They don't defend enough.
They don't have a chance.
They don't
defend enough. Yeah. They're one of those teams too who's just up and down. They remind me of Clemson in some ways. It's just like different scenarios, but just not that good at the end of the day.
Yeah, Clemson, my two concerns about them is they don't always defend like Brad's teams usually do. Now, like Hunter and Gerard, but neither one of them is a great point guard at the end of games.
That's a good point.
And they've lost a lot of close games. And go back and look at the loss at Cameron. They turned it over.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got to have a point guard there that's going to help facilitate to get a really good shot. And I think that's what would maybe keep them from doing it. Right now, I would say the teams that can win it are Carolina, Duke, absolutely.
Yep.
I think Pitt can. I do think Syracuse can. And if I had to choose somebody else, I would probably go with Clemson because they have more guys I think could go off, and they could defend and they can rebound. I just think they're more put together and more solid in all areas than Wake is.
Yeah.
And that means Wake's going to win it.
Yeah, Wake will win it, or freaking somebody that we haven't even talked about on here will somehow make a run in this tournament and win it all. So it's up in the air. This is one of those tournaments going into it where I think in the past I'm usually like, it'd probably be Duke or Carolina, or maybe there's the third seed or something. I usually just stick with
UVA.
The top four.
Can UVA win it? They're the three seed.
Maybe.
Do they win a game?
Not, but maybe.
They would.
I don't think they're good enough offensively to win it, but defense wins championships, AJ. So
I think it used to. I think defense puts you in position to win championships. Shot makers and rebounding wins championships.
Good point. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Virginia would probably play Clemson on Thursday. I think that'd be a great game.
That would be a good game right there. For me, I'm as uncertain in this one who's going to win it than I've been in a long time.
Syracuse.
Yeah.
You have quarterfinals, Carolina against Virginia Tech or Florida State. I would probably lean Virginia Tech a little bit on that. Duke against Syracuse, Virginia against Clemson, and you'd have Pitt and Wake. Pitt and Wake would be playing a playing game for Dayton.
Yeah.
Seriously. They should just move that game to Dayton.
That's why it's funny. Just go ahead and get it out of the way. Just move it up there. I love that. No, I'm looking forward to it. I like I said, this is one of those tournaments where it could be 5, 6, 7 teams. I think they could potentially win it. I'm not as confident in my pick as I have been in the past with certain teams. But again, I'm going to go with Duke or Pittsburgh. But if another team sneaks in there, if Carolina wins it, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. So
I'm going to say Syracuse or Pitt. I'm going to say Syracuse or Pitt.
I like it. You're being bold with those picks too. You're not just going with the second seed in Duke and the 4th seed in Pittsburgh like I am. You're actually going out on a limb a little bit with Syracuse. So more power to you for picking that. Let's do this. I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear from listeners here. Send us a message on Twitter. We'll post this obviously. On the front page on Twitter is a link, and be a link to our website where you can watch this episode if you're watching this right here. Get involved over there, reply to that, or just reach out to us at Jacob Turner THI or at Heel Illustrated on Twitter. Let us know who you think is going to win the tournament. You can also get involved on our website, AJ, $8.33 a month. Links in the description below to sign up. Great time to do so as postseason basketball is officially here. A ton of extra perks and content when you become a premium subscriber at THI. And you can get involved in our premium message boards where we post every article we put on the front also has a thread attached to it. So go in there and get involved. And if you are one of our subscribers listening right now, go on over to the thread right now and get involved. Let us know who you think is going to win the ACC tournament. But AJ, let's get out of here, man. You got to hit the road. Got a long drive ahead of you up in DC. I guess you won't have to worry about traffic, I guess, by the time you get up in that area.
Yeah, that's not too bad. There's always traffic.
That's true, but you're not getting there.
I'm staying in Old Town. I'm staying in Old Town, Alexandria, so there's always traffic there.
Nice, man. Nice. Well,
4:00 in the morning, someone's honking a horn.
Enjoy it back up there, man. AJ's back to his old stomping ground, so DC better watch out. That's all I got to say about it. I mean, tear that town up if you don't watch out.
I'll be hacking away.
I'm about to say, and you'll have zero time to even go walk around outside.
I've had a lot of people say, "Well, let's get together." I'm like, "Well, I'm there to work, so I have the time." And the NCAA tournament's easier because there's the day in between games where you have all the media stuff. You just have downtime at night because usually you're done by about 6 p.m.
Yeah.
All that work. It goes like 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., 7 p.m., something like that. The ACC tournament's just it's boom, 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 boom.
Nonstop, yeah. Nonstop.
Now, if the Heels lose, if they don't make it to the finals, then I might have to go out and well, I mean, I go up there a couple of times in the summer anyway.
Yeah. But if you got a chance, you'll make time to do something. You got to hit the town a little bit and go check it out. And it's just a grab a bite to eat and grab a beer or something like that. You gotta get back to your old stomping grounds up there. So have fun up there, AJ. We'll obviously be covering the ACC tournament every step of the way. Check us out, TarIllustrated.com. Again, links in the description below. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Another edition of the UNC Basketball Show. Like the video below if you think Carolina's going to win the ACC tournament. Like the video below if you think Hubert Davis deserve ACC Coach of the Year, and like the video below if you think RJ Davis was the right pick for ACC Player of the Year. The people listened last time after 3 things against Duke. I think you said you wanted 1,000 likes, and I think right now
500. I asked for 500.
We got like 800 plus.
And you told me that was bold too.
Yeah,
I don't know what listen, man. Last I looked, it was like 840.
People listen. Now we appreciate that, guys. I want at least 100 on this one. I'm gonna keep it low for the people. I would love 500, but I know that's not gonna happen. Let's do that. I want 150. That's kind of my sweet spot. I want a minimum of 150 on any podcast we do. Especially
I shoot higher than you. I'm going 200.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, I'm more of the I keep it a little more conservative. I like you out there taking a little bit of risk with that pick. So we'll see what happens with the likes. But go ahead and like that video below. I've already told you guys to do it about 15 times already. So if you haven't done it, what are you doing? Just share, subscribe, hit the notification bell too, guys, and we'll see y'all next time. Thanks.